lips. Do you remember that scene? And so, and so, you know, he thought he had privacy, but here the AI is effectively spying on him. So my basic question is, where do you come out on the AI debate? Is it sort of the most important discovery of humanity, or are we unleashing the demons, as some of my friends have said?
Well, like many other points of technological progress, the answer is both, right? The same methods of social communication that allow us to reach across borders allow adversaries to do the same. When we think about artificial intelligence, I'm actually not terrified that we're going to have sort of this perfect algorithm that's going to categorize everybody, because I've worked at the NSA and they've already tried to do this. And the problem is the false positive and false negative rate. Mass surveillance allows them to collect records about all of us, right? They know exactly where you've been because of the movements of your cell phone. They know everything you've ever bought. They know every web page that you've ever visited for the length of their buffer internet traffic. Now, they say this is fine and it's not a violation of your rights because they're not looking at it. They're not looking at you and saying, this person, I want to get that. Without a warrant, if you're American. If you're not American, they'll look at it. But they'll go, it's only machines looking at it. Well, the vast majority of automated analytics actually don't really work that well because let's say they've got an 80% success rate, they're 80% accurate. Now that might sound good, but when you think about for every 100 people, that means 20 people are going to be falsely identified as terrorists, or 20 terrorists are going to be falsely identified as non-terrorists. Suddenly that doesn't look so useful. Even if it's 99.999% effective, when you're looking at populations of the scale of 330 million Americans, 7 billion people on the planet, that is, suddenly you're making millions of people into terrorists who weren't terrorists before, and vice versa. These are problems that will always exist because, as you may know, artificial intelligence and sort of learning algorithms, neural network, all of these things, they work on probabilities. Even in human knowledge, when you break things down sort of Bayesian sense, you're ultimately going, is this more probable or not probable? And that works in a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily work in terms of making life-altering decisions, or at least it shouldn't. Now, increasingly, of course, it will be, and increasingly problems will appear as a result of that. But I think because we will recognize that these problems emerge, we'll go to the traditional sort of things that we've always believed in this country, which is it's better to let, sort of a guilty man walk than to punish huge numbers of innocents in the pursuit of one person who did some bad thing, who abused their rights, who abused their capabilities. Technology is capability. Artificial intelligence is the same thing. It is a capability. It is a magnifier of potential. If you give, an individual an artificial intelligence that will do their work, suddenly that individual may become 10 times more capable. If you give the same thing to a government that makes the government 10 times more capable, the gap between them actually grows because the government had more relative power prior to magnification. But I think that's what I'm saying.
So you're using a beam to beam in from some other part of the planet. I have, I think, last count, like 28 beams, about a dozen at Singularity University, a half a dozen at X Prize, at my home, my folks' home, around, and I use this as sort of like a basic business tool to get around. How have you used Beam, and being, I think the right term is in exile, how does this affect your daily life and your mission?
Well, one of the sort of incredible things that's actually almost hard to believe is the fact that, when I left the United States to work for journalists, and I was trying to seek asylum, the U.S. government basically canceled my passport as I was transiting off en route to Latin America. And I haven't been able to travel since. But yet I'm sitting here in Las Vegas with you guys, at CES. This is an extraordinary change in the nature of the relationship between individuals and states. Government is becoming, in some ways, and this is, it's fairly controversial, but less relevant than it has been before because people have more capabilities to provide for themselves, to achieve for themselves. And this is critical for keeping governments honest, because governments today have also been more powerful than they've ever been in previous society. We have drones that at any given part of the world, far from any boundaries, in places like Yemen, with which we don't have an active state war, are actively dropping bombs. And that may be a terrorist, right? But it also might not be. And these things do happen, whether by mistake, whether intentionally, is not really material. But abuse is inevitably the product of power, right? Like pollution is a byproduct of industrial process. We have to figure out how to address these things. We have to be able to figure out how to respond to these things. And increasingly, we're seeing a new form of ethics, a new